In this midnight hour, I begin with a word of appreciation to 24/7, my friend Alan Casey, for bringing us together to take a stand against gun violence. We do so on the eve of Juneteenth, the federal holiday. And so we will suspend this people's filibuster for the period of time in which we as a nation celebrate the abolition of slavery, the announcement to those who were enslaved in Galveston, Texas, 250,000 or so people across the state of Texas. As we celebrate Juneteenth, we will suspend our filibuster for just legislation. But in this moment, I want to again express appreciation to all the organizers, the conveners, the mayors, the governors, the activists and advocates who are standing against gun violence in this moment. It may seem morally ironic, historically perverse for someone whose chosen vocation, whose involuntary calling is civil rights servant leadership, to participate in a filibuster. After all, the longest filibuster was used infamously to block civil rights legislation in the late 1950s on the part of United States Senator Strom Thurmond from my home state of South Carolina. It is morally ironic, historically perverse, for any person, any citizen of conscience to participate in a filibuster to block, to impede, to hold up, to hem up just legislation. But we're here tonight to take a strong stand, a principled stand, as a people, as a nation, as a country, to engage in a people's filibuster in service of just legislation, in order that we might bring about an end to gun violence and establish, if you will, a reign of nonviolence in this country. So we're here this evening with 24/7, with mayors and governors, with Democrats and Republicans, with independents and nonpartisans, with younger people and with older people. But to be clear, I'm not here as a civil rights leader, although civil rights is undeniably at the center of this gun epidemic. I'm not here as a teacher or as a member of the Harvard Kennedy School faculty, although children have been slaughtered in school. Students have been slaughtered on college campuses and universities. People have lost their lives before they learn to read the alphabet or before they learn to add the letters BA, MBA, MA, or PhD after their names. I'm not here as a civil rights lawyer, because as a lawyer, nothing I learned in law school, nothing I was taught at Yale Law School prepared me to explain to children, the youngest, most vulnerable of our citizens, why we as a country, as a republic, have not take it upon ourselves to enact laws to protect them, to hold their bodies sacred and safe. I am not here, even as a fourth-generation minister of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Although as a minister of the gospel, I have grieved when Muslims have been slain in their mosques. I have grieved when Jews have been slaughtered in their synagogues. I have grieved when Christians have been killed in their churches, but I'm not here as a Christian minister. I'm here this evening simply as a father, standing with and beside my son Hamilton, and with and beside a beloved daughter, Molly Bowman. And so I offer my testimony, not as a civil rights lawyer, not as a minister of the gospel, not as a teacher, but simply in my modest capacity as a father. As a father, my testimony for gun reform is threefold. First, I want to make it clear that gun reform legislation is the healing that we need for the catastrophic childhood trauma experienced by our youngest and most vulnerable citizens. Second, I want to make the argument that gun reform legislation is necessary to demilitarize racial injustice in this country. And third, I want to make the case that gun violence is as much evidence of voter frustration as the insurrection is evidence of voter suppression. That is to say, gun reform is a profoundly democratic issue in our multiracial democracy. Now, to argue that gun reform legislation is the healing we need for the massively underdiagnosed and underappreciated childhood trauma of literally the babes in our midst coming up in our schools, coming up in our neighborhoods, coming up in our homes. I want to begin not with statistics, not with studies, but with two stories. As a third or fourth grader in Nashville, Tennessee, where my father studied as a medical student at Meharry Medical College, and my mother studied as a nursing student. My younger brother, younger sister, and I, as elementary school students, found ourselves at home by ourselves for a few hours each day as my mother studied